Well, hello and welcome back to Creators Union Live. What's up, Brian? What's up, James? How you guys doing?
Doing well, Parisa. And then with that noise, I feel like that was my morning alarm clock. And that's like one of the old school LED alarm clocks. Time to go. Get started.
I was like, that's an abrupt way to enter into this. I'm like, okay, let's just embrace the alarm clock right now.
Totally.
That's fun. But doing well, doing good, Parisa.
Good, good, good. Well, I want to kind of catch up with you guys about just with kind of how your week went. So, Brian, I've been hearing a bit about just a little bit about you working with your brother. So, if you could share a little bit more about that, I'm dying to know because I've been hearing you and James talk about it a bit.
Yeah, my week, shoot, I talked about it when we did a stream last week, which was specifically on AI. While I've been dabbling the past 2 to 4 weeks, I'm probably almost spending too much time using AI, some of it exploratory. But then also more recently this week, I shifted to working across a range of AI tools for a practical purpose, not to explore, not to entertain. So my brother has two different products he's bringing to market, physical products that he's going to sell and ship. So you need marketing messaging, you need packaging. One of them is a salve. You need to research the ingredients. We're sourcing box dimensions. He needs a new website. So this week, we used AI to generate the packaging and labeling before I moved it into Photoshop, to then use AI within Photoshop to fix it, to create product promos and placement. I created the layout for the box die cut. The layout for the box die cut was built with AI. And then for the first time ever, I built the website with AI. Literally, you just went in and put in a prompt. It got that thing probably 75% of there. I was talking with my wife earlier, as she remembers Dreamweaver, right? When you used to just open up Dreamweaver and you had, it's old, right? It's the original computer tool to build websites, frankly, before you got beyond, once you got beyond code. And used to start a project, open up Dreamweaver, and you were literally just presented with a bunch of buttons and a blank screen. And the difference between trying to figure out where you want to organize and set things versus typing a couple of sentence prompt and having a complete framework was probably the most amazing thing. But so here's what I will say. This week was fun. It entertained me. I lost a lot of sleep, unfortunately, because I enjoyed it. And it reminded me, and I know we're going to have a multi-sided discussion about AI, but one thing I'll throw AI in it. It reminded me how much I like designing and building products and bringing things to market. And in a sense, it made it practical for me to do it while I was working on about 3 or 4 other projects. Right. So I appreciate you asking. Yeah, all in all, it was a good week. And it just happened to be for me serendipitously that it was an AI heavy week.
Wow. I mean, you had me at website. So, I mean, I'm not kidding. Like those things intimidate the crap out of me. So that's amazing. And Dreamweaver, is that a song?
No.
I'm showing my age, yes, and I don't give two craps, but there's a song that sounds.
It actually is a song, and I play it in my set a lot. It's a beautiful song. But yes, that's not what he's referring to. But thank you for reminding me. I need to play more Dreamweaver.
No, yeah, he wasn't referring to it. I was asking about isn't that a song?
I gotta look for the song.
I started hearing it in my head.
The song is amazing. Parisa knows it well because I used to play it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a song.
Yeah, no,
it is a song.
It's like I say early and just for, because I got to keep in mind I'm of a certain age, so I think to kind of have a one-on-one and 101 focus and make sure we include everybody. So how do I do this quickly? When people first started building, when web first came about, and what really unlocked it was HTML tags, right? And I think we've all at this point seen HTML, and for a long time, that's how you built the website, right? You literally coded HTML tags, then FTP'd it to a server. Adobe was one of the first people to come out with a mass adopted graphical tool or application to build websites. So at that time, it was pretty revolutionary and powerful. You now look back, and I'm like, that's like I don't know, the original Ford Model T, right?
Okay, so when you say HTML tags, I'm thinking of when you could customize your MySpace page.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We're all on the same playing field.
And actually, I'm going to tie to a thing that James may say again, and we've heard James say a lot. When we talk about the read-write own web, Dreamweaver was incidentally right at the start of the right, when anybody can create and put stuff up on the web.
I like that. Okay. Thank you for that connection. That helps. So, James, what's up? How was your week? Heard you were in Denver. You're on mute. You might want to unmute. But I know that you were in Denver. So if you could catch us up to speed a bit about your time in Denver.
What's up? What's up? It's good to be back. I went to Denver. Shout out to the good folks in Denver. Shout out to Outside Magazine for their festival. I had this crazy thing, you can call it crazy, in that, I started DJing about a decade ago. And, when we started this thing with Jazzy Jeff, I was like, well, I can't be on the air with Jazzy Jeff every week and not, set some intentionality behind DJing. So about 6 months ago, I gave myself a revenue goal. I said, I really want to actually get booked on more dates. I actually want to get a manager. And so really excited that this week I booked my first festival in Denver at the Outside Magazine Festival. I opened up for Thundercat. Thank you.
Wow.
And
congrats.
8 to 10,000 people were there. It was awesome. I was the opening act, and it's the beginning of a career as a creator. It was sort of what I call my sourdough bread during, everybody else was baking sourdough bread during the pandemic, and I was trying to really hone my craft, utilizing at the time Clubhouse. And so so I booked my first festival. I DJ this weekend, and then on day 2 of the festival, I kind of flipped back into entrepreneur, kind of startup advisor mode, and just walked around and talked to some really great startups in the outdoor space. The outdoor space is fascinating. It's not a space I'd spend a lot of time in, but if you think about where we are with our national parks, where we are with getting people out to enjoy actually touching grass and getting off their computer and not being on AI, there's such a beautiful industry that surrounds the support of the outdoors. And so part of my week was spent there, kind of enjoying brands like North Face and then also meeting brands like these guys who are at Lamert Engineering. There's another brand that I'm forgetting the name of that I'll have to bring. They make a pants for women. So you don't have to you actually don't have to pull your pants. You can actually, it's a fly zipper. And they're kind of like an Alo or Lululemon. I'm going to get you a pair of those, Parisa. They're going to send us a pair. So shout out to all the brands that I connected with that are sending me all this really interesting gear now for our show. It was a good time had there. And then the second part of my week was in Silicon Valley. And while again, I wasn't necessarily playing in AI, I certainly was back where Brian and I grew up in good old Palo Alto, California, sitting with an incredible startup that you'll probably hear more about on the show that we're going to be probably doing some work with, which is called Gigaverse. And so I was with, people who created VoIP, the people who were on the early team of Skype, and folks who are really in the creator economy thinking about the future of streaming video and AI and where that will come together for creators. So always a pleasure to be back in the Bay Area. There definitely is a different conversation happening in the Bay Area than in LA. I definitely felt that kind of constant conversation around the code. It was just good to get back to where my roots were, drive by my high school, my junior high school, and remind myself of where I came from and, writing code in 8th grade and all that kind of good stuff, taking things apart, putting it back together. And so I feel like I'm coming back with a new engineering mind. And so I'm really excited about this conversation. Another thing I just want to add is we were so fortunate to have Wallonius and on as a guest last week. Announcement coming soon, but Creator Mode Studios is going to be working with Wallonius in a very significant way. And we've been working with him, truth be told. And so the announcement around what that looks like is coming this week. But you saw him last week on the show. You've been seeing BBL Drizzy. Shout out to Kai Sanat, who took another one of Wallonius' songs and made that, create some virality this week. But yeah, excited that Creator Mode Studios and the stuff that we're talking about on the show will actually come to life around a creator that we're going to be backing and supporting and managing in a very significant way.
Awesome. 2 questions for you. One, it's connected to you sharing about being in the Bay. When you said that there's different conversation going on, you mentioned that it was about the code. Are you meaning like literal code, or what do you mean by that? Break down.
That's a great question. I find so much of the conversations in the Bay Area are driven by engineering, driven by a deep understanding of code, of what is inside the computer, what's driving the future of technology and the web and all the things, that are kind of the internet and then the surrounding infrastructure around the internet. It's great. It's awesome. I love being around those people. I find the conversation in LA is about what's on top of that code. So, think about Netflix is a technology company that started actually in the Bay Area and now comes to LA and really gives us this, new way of disrupting the film business. I think that there is a new conversation happening around these companies that are baked and rooted in Silicon Valley, but then need LA. I'm just using LA as a reference for creators, needs the creators to kind of sit on top of it. So I love being kind of steeped in Los Angeles and Hollywood and the most creative minds ever on the planet. I am bullish on LA, but I also love sitting with engineers and hearing what they're thinking about as it relates to the future of the web.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So the way I'm understanding is that in the Bay, that's where it's being built, but LA is experiencing what's being built or what has been built.
Yeah, it's probably a great simplification. The world's experiencing what's being built, and I think the creators are the ones telling the stories on top of the tools that are being built.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Second question for you. What was it like to DJ your first festival? What was the best takeaway for you?
Yeah, I want to know. That's dope.
Yeah, so I think this lighting is, so if you see some weird, it's just my lighting. It was humbling to be, to look out in the crowd. And I wasn't DJing, truthfully, when there were 10,000 people there. So, just to be, humbled and just be grateful that whoever was there was supposed to be there. I later found out that even though I couldn't see the people, the way the stage was set up, there was a whole bunch of people dancing to the side. But the way the stage was set up, I couldn't see who I was DJing for. And I didn't care that I was DJing for, 30, 40 people or not. I DJ'd as if I was DJing for 10,000 people. So I gave a show. I fought through some rain. There was some wind and some rain in Denver that I literally just had to hold my laptop and DJ while the rain was coming to protect my laptop from the rain for a minute and the wind. So that was kind of interesting. There were some sound issues. So I had to during the set, work with the engineers to work through sound issues. So I feel like I'm getting my training, as a creator on, what could happen, what will happen when things go wrong. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to have, to DJ on a big stage with a full production team that's doing big concerts. And just to have people around me that could troubleshoot and right on the spot. I mean, to watch those guys, it was like a NASCAR. It was like having a NASCAR and people changing tires. That's what was happening during my set. We were unplugging things, plugging things in, how sound goes up, so it was really, to work with professionals at that level I could really feel the difference and feel just empowered to DJ. I DJ'd the night before in more of like a smaller room, and just the difference between DJing on a stage at a festival versus like a smaller room. It was just really interesting to feel what those two different experiences felt like.
Yeah, I gotta say, James, there's gonna be very few times that because of our banter that I admit this to you, but I'm comfortable admitting that watching what you've done with your passion of DJing over the past couple of years is a serious inspiration to me to get out of my bedroom. And so that's why you hear me excited and clapping for you, whether it was 40 or 40,000. Really dope, brother. Really dope.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
I do gotta, if I can, real quick. One is I want it said here. I'm creating the domain Sourdough Sessions now. I will give it to you. But then I also, before we let you off the hook, man, Lamert, you told me a little bit about it before we got on, and it just felt dope. I just wondered if you could say a little bit more about Lamert before, because I didn't get time to dig in. So it is a Black-owned outdoor equipment company out of LA, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to spend some more time with them and get more of their story. So one brother from LA native, went to Crossroads High School and is interested in the outdoor space and is, I think, a bit of a rock climber himself. And wow. the other partner he met during the pandemic. He's from Atlanta. He went to Mays High School in Atlanta. We had a nice little chat about Atlanta. And they came together over hiking. I think they went to Big Bear on a snowboard trip. And while they were on the trip, they were like, we should really do something. And so they have, a small capsule collection that they're doing. They have a really cool imagery. They don't have a brick and mortar store yet. In fact, one of the brothers has a full-time job. But they even had these like crates that like were storing all of their like merchandise. They were like these, the big like crates you put stuff in, and they put the Lamert sticker on. And I was like, that's an outdoor product right there. Like, I thought it was something I could buy. I was like, let me buy that. And they were like, no, this is just what we store our gear in. And I was like, no, that's really cool. Like the design.
Crate.
Yeah. Basically, it was a big crate you would take, camping or something, or take to the beach. And they also had a do-rag, which I thought was really dope. They had like a do-rag for outdoor, for camping. So they really are putting a cultural spin on the outdoors. And I think there's a massive market for that. A lot of the time that I spent, I should add this, in Denver was with some of the folks of color who are in the outdoor space. Also the indigenous folks. When I go to these events, I tend to have a crew, and part of the crew are some of my indigenous leaders. And then the other crew that I kind of hang out with are Black and brown folks. And then also those who are there's a term for it. Oh gosh, like what's the term? Not disabled, but like it's a group of outdoor people that think about people with disabilities.
Physically challenged, right?
Adaptive. Yeah. Thank you. No, Parisa has the right term. It's adaptive. Thank you.
Okay.
So there's a whole adaptive crew in the outdoor space. I thought was really cool. They have this woman out of Brooklyn has a whole adaptive rock climbing community that she's built, which I thought was really cool. And she's So I hang out with the adaptive, the indigenous, and the Black and brown folks, and it's really special to be spending time with those folks, because for a lot of them, they have not had the access that other folks have had. And there's barriers to the outdoors. You would not think it's just the outdoors, just go outdoors, right? But no, It's just not that simple. And then love what my brother in Atlanta is doing with HBCU outside, where he's going to HBCU campuses and encouraging outdoor programming on HBCU campuses, encouraging clubs to then become maybe academic practice on the campus. And, that leads us into environmental and sustainability and to farming. And like, just really cool. So he's doing some really great work there. We're going to do more work with him. Yeah, just really, really good people that care about the outdoors and want to make the outdoors and getting outside actually really cool. So for me, it was great. Again, it's non-techie. It's the most non-techie thing ever to just be, outside. And I really appreciate the time I was able to spend in Denver, a beautiful city. Shout out to Colorado. I love Colorado, love Denver. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Love it. Well, we can just dive right in. So,
well, wait. Can we?
Your week.
Your week. Like, I want to know
what.
Yeah, what talk to us about?
We're 25 minutes in. I want to make sure we're keeping time, and I'm being responsible for that. So yeah.
But we got time for.
We got time. Yeah, give us a couple minutes on how you protect your peace this week. I know that was a big priority for you.
Yeah. Okay. So this week, I definitely spent a lot of time off screen, off camera. Many years ago when I was deep in a PTSD healing journey. And when I say that, I don't just mean on a trauma level, I mean on a brain level. And one of the things I learned deeply that I've worked with my physicians with is the amount of exposure I have to screens, because screens tend to complicate and congest the neurological process when you're compromised. I'll say that. And compromise can be a lot of different things. It can even mean if you've experienced a concussion, that's compromised as well. So there's a lot of things that can be under that umbrella. But one thing I learned is to really regulate and put on myself on a schedule with how much I'm exposed to screens, because I can not realize how much I become overloaded on a brain level. And it's not that I don't continue to function. I do. I just notice myself becoming so much more exhausted and defeated in general, because everything impacts everything. And so because I've been working on my laptop so much so much more the last 2 years than I ever have in my life, I typically have been plugged into things where I'm quite active and I'm moving around a lot. And having 2 little boys, I mean, how can you not be moving around a lot? But I've noticed I've been on my computer a lot more. And I'm taking the time right now, and I have been the last several weeks, to really recalibrate what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, why I'm doing it, what's my intention, what's the objective, and when's my boundary, what's it look like, and kind of putting that framework in place. So when you say protecting your peace, for me, it's like making sure my neurology is tended to and nurtured, and putting in place the things that I know, things that I've done before, and not because anything awful or big or bad that's been happening. It's more of making sure I'm tending to myself in a way that may not be really talked about often. And it's something that I want to continue to expand my cognitive ability and my capacity. And I have over the last several years applying these different things. So that's been my week.
And that's a gem. That's a gem for somebody out there. And I appreciate your honesty about it's like me. It's a gem for me. Yeah, it's a gem for me too. Before this started, I got out and just, I had to walk. I had to feel the ground, and and Parisa has been an inspiration for me around that. I just love, sometimes we'll just like talk, and she's just like, she's just walking. By the way, she's the fastest walker I've ever walked with. Like, there's no one that walks faster than this woman right here.
Yeah. I will outwalk anyone.
I'm going to challenge you to a non-intentional walk race. All right. Because I grew up with all of my uncles, grandmother over 6'5". So we'll see. I have to try to keep up. Now,
I actually have confidence in this area.
Okay.
Good luck, bro. Good luck.
Okay. Well, I've been known to run myself straight into brick walls. So I want to jump in, Parisa, first and say thank you, because literally you're talking to someone that spent 30 years glued to screens, probably 8 hours a day on average, probably 12, 14 hours a day. So it's important for me to think about that. I also want a chance to call out the time. You work with the LA Tribune, correct? And you just did a streaming marathon effectively, where you guys were streaming constantly for how many days?
8 days, 10 hours a day for 8 days straight. Yeah.
And you were jumping into that, then you were jumping over and doing this. So it also just sounds like, I know it's not the word you used, but sort of a screen detox, getting away from the screen sounds like it was particularly timely after that.
Yeah.
Herculean effort. Yeah.
We spent, I think it was over 80 hours that week. And I had the chance to co-host and co-produce that. And it was the coolest, most challenging, and just awesome experience overall, because there were over 200 speakers across 8 days. That's a lot of logistics. Okay. I wasn't the one having to spearhead all of the logistics, but I was the one stepping in to adapt, balance, and do all these things, because we each had, we're all constantly juggling various roles. And the juggling and the adapting wasn't the challenge. It was the constantly looking at a screen while I'm doing that. That was a challenge for me, because at a certain point, my brain just goes like into like a mode. That's not a mode, but that's what it feels like for me. And if you're asking me a question and I'm on like, there's nothing going through. There's nothing happening here. And you can't do that if you're responsible for a stream. And I have to see exactly what we're at right now, but we're over 1.5 million viewers for those 8 days. And there were a lot of people on at one time viewing, a lot of comments coming in, a lot of things. So the amount, like the input and the amount I'm just like receiving and juggling and being exposed to, really, I was able to step into that and do that, which is the first time I've been, I want to say like that forward facing. It's not been my thing necessarily. It's been increasingly something I've experienced the last 2 years, but I've not been so forward facing my whole life. If anything, I've avoided it like the plague. I've avoided being on this thing, a camera, my whole life. So the fact to balance all of that and to show up and then bounce over from there to then what we're doing here, and completely shift, parts of my brain of what we're talking about as well. Because we also dove into blockchain that week. And I was like, if there's anything, this is the week I'm being challenged the most, intellectually speaking. But yeah, I really, really needed to be mindful of regulating how much I was on the screen, on my phone, on a laptop, anything. And I have been. I've not even I kind of just took a backseat from like a lot of things. I needed it. And, in order to continue to expand my capacity, not my personal container for all of this, I get to withdraw and retreat a bit. And I did. And I did get a lot of things done, but they were different things than the norm. And it's my norm, but then the norm for a lot of people. So that was my week.
There it is.
Here we are. Back
over to you.
Exactly.
That was Paris's week in sound effects, but
well, I think in metaphors, so that actually is perfect. So, here we are. So, as we dive into AI, y'all ready to dive in? You two ready?
Let's go. Let's go.
As we dive into this conversation, it's going to be conversation that's going to start with some questions, as I'm sharing with others that are listening right now. I'm going to ask some questions to both Brian and James. And guys, as we dive into these questions, I'd like you to think of, if there's something comes to mind, questions you have for me, because we're viewing this and we're approaching this conversation from very different places, especially with what I just shared, what my week has been about. That's also the lens I approach AI with. So now that you have a bit of an understanding of my context in this conversation, I'm going to ask, encourage, and hopefully you guys have a question or two for me to help really expand the context of this whole AI as a whole, this conversation.
And I think powerful, and I'm going to be rude up there. I just want to call out 3 different perspectives, right? We kind of got a guy that's been primary. We're all overlap. Right. But 3 different perspectives. So I look forward to it. But yeah, I'll have questions for you.
here we are. Yeah. So we're going to start off. We're going to be diving into AI, guys, not just YouTube, but for everyone else that's listening. We're going to be diving into AI for several weeks. And as we continue to craft each week, it's going to be a different focal point. But this week is the week where we're really spreading this, like the whole canvas, the whole landscape of AI. So as the title states, balancing AI and creators, but balancing opportunities and ethics. And it's really the opportunities and ethics that we're going to expand most on today. And I'm excited for this because I feel like, so some of these questions that I have for you both are questions that I've seen my friends ask on various platforms, or questions that they've brought to me, that are like, they're legitimate questions. So I know if like one person is genuinely asking these questions, then others always are. So with that being said, I'm actually going to start with the question that I had myself. Where do I start with AI? Learning about it. Where do I go? And how do I know what's credible to go to?
I have an opinion on this. Probably not, it's not ultra deep. It's honestly, first I'd say, where do you learn about it? What is a credible place? Well, first I'd say you learn about it by just using it and then figuring out how you use it. So I sort of said, because Chat GPT is so general and in a sense, layperson friendly, it's like just jump into Chat GPT, click one of the sample prompts, see what questions it asks, and engage with that. Now, we could say Chat GPT is credible, but what you're also going to find is, there's things you use today. There's a lot of people that have built a website to sell brownies or for their startup. Well, Wix has rolled out a ton of AI. What's going to happen is there's this AI gold rush. So in the places where you are in kind of trusted spaces, be it a tool or otherwise, it's almost 100% guaranteed that AI is going to show up in your space. Try it there. Mm-hmm. So that's where I would kind of start. Now, obviously, there's more to learn about it and to get comfortable and safe with it. But I think where it really hit me and some other people that I showed it to, November 2022, when the generative AI became the thing, is they just started to play with it. And weren't full converts, but they found tools that'll help.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I would like to say, as you brought up Chat GPT, the only like claim that I can have, it's not even over James, I just think it's hilarious, is that I started using Chat GPT before he did. So just putting that on the record. I can't.
Right.
That's it. That's about all I have. But so James, if you could shed some light on that question, where do you start? And how do you know like what is credible?
Yeah. So my answer is going to sound very similar to Brian, in that where I started was by actually using the tools. And I think one of the things that has proven extremely valuable for me is to find daily usages for the tool. So as Brian mentioned, AI, which is not brand new, has been around for a long time, is embedded in so many things. Call it Zoom right now, Dropbox,
Siri, Alexa.
Siri, Alexa, right.
So Siri just turned on my phone. Hold on.
Not exactly.
I love it. Exactly. Where is it? It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So
I don't even have it set up and it turned on. I have it deactivated.
That was funny. Okay. So as pointed out, AI is literally all around us. AI, is in the background running in many of our devices. AI is the reason that Netflix gives you the things it gives you, right? And so for me, when we got to the generative AI moment in time, which was prompted, no pun intended, by Chat GPT in that moment. And yes, you were using it before I was. I remember that. I was in Dubai when everything kind of hit, and you were filling me in on what was going on and this platform. Mm-hmm. The way to really use it is to use it, and to to actually find ways in which it can play in your daily life. So for me, that could be everything from writing a meal plan to a meditation strategy to conversations with my lawyer that I want to interpret. Sometimes I get contracts back from my lawyer, and I'm like, break this down to me like high school level, So it really, for me, it got more interesting when everyday practices that I would normally do, I could actually utilize AI for. Now, it doesn't mean I'm using every single thing I do every day that way, but I think like things that you normally would outsource to a human or even to more time, I began to outsource. And what I found that was happening was things that I normally, especially in my work. So a lot of my work is advisory work, right? So I'm advising, say, a startup, and we're going to have a strategy meeting, and we've taken a bunch of notes in previous meetings to be able to like upload those notes, analyze those notes, and then build an agenda for the meeting based on 2 weeks worth of other meetings, allowed me to like have more time to actually dive into the meeting versus like going back and reviewing all the notes. So what I found is that AI, for me, the starting place, again, being everyday practical application, I began to get really excited about like the free time that I was given, or the free space in my brain that I was given, because I wasn't stressing. So that was really like the big moment. The second moment for me was this moment of like, I once had a mentor in Dubai, and he said, James, until you take an idea and you go from idea to PowerPoint, it's not an idea, right? And so I would tell him all these like crazy ideas I had, and he would say, that's great, but like you need to like build it out. So what I began to do is like every time I got an idea, which is often, or every time I even had like someone said something and I thought that could be a blog post, or even the germ of an idea, I started to build using AI this thing where I would build out ideas and take them from the germ into fully fleshing it out. Now, when AI fleshes it out, it's not going to be perfect, but you're going to have more depth to it than you did before. So even walking home from getting coffee today, I had an idea about a new AI ethics community I want to build. Funny that that's the title of our show today. And I just came up with the idea as I was walking, and I prompted, hey, what if like I built a community around AI and ethics, and I did this and this and this and this and this. And so now that copy, I just cut, paste, and I put in a category in a bunch of notes that are kind of like ideas, idea gems. I actually call them minimal viable ideas, if I want to be honest. And so these minimal viable ideas that used to sit in my notes section of my phone now have a home, and I can build them out. And then I can not only build them out, I can build a logo for the consortium by tonight. And for me as a creative, I have to have tangibility. Like I have to not just have this stuff in my head. I need to see it as a document. I need to see it as a logo. I might need to even see it as a marketing plan. And I just found that like AI helped me go from like just the idea and kind of, a bunch of us have ideas, but to move it along from idea to concept to marketing plan to logo, even those basic 4 steps, that AI is giving me now more ability to move some of these ideas out of my head, out of my notes app in my phone, into an actual tangible thing. And look, it doesn't mean that I'll execute on all of those things, but at least I now have a file of things that I can build on top of. And I'm like, oh, remember when you had that crazy idea about the consortium? Well, hey, this, client over here wants to do this. What if you combine those things? And I can start to, fuse documents together. Hope that was helpful.
Yeah, it was long-winded. Thank you.
But I have a question.
It painted it. Yeah.
Yeah. You said you actually used Chat GPT before James. I think a lot of how we answered is kind of where we started. So you started using ChatGPT the way I recommended. What was your take on it? Was it effective? Are you still looking for a better way? Did you find a better way to learn and engage?
Well, I would say that like if we're talking about implementing AI tools, I used like Otter is like my ride or die.
Oh,
Before
interesting.
even Chat GPT, like Otter is my ride or die.
My ride or die. That's an Otter
No,
commercial.
for real though. Like
Otter,
I use
your
Otter
ride or
every
die.
day. I use Otter every day. Um, I've realized that, and this is also part of connected to what I was sharing earlier, is that if I have tools that help me recall things that I've already experienced, or information that I've already heard, or knowledge that I'm needing to really learn and then integrate, it's the most helpful for me to have some way, shape, or form, something that can help hold that information or hold that moment, hold that experience for me. So years ago, I started implementing taking photos and videos of random moments throughout the day, just for the sake of having a visual timeline of my life, because I was very challenged with memory loss for many years, and I was scared that I wasn't going to remember anything of my life or my kids' lives. And I realized like I can actually outsource this need that I have until my brain is functioning better. I can outsource this to taking photos and taking videos. And so I have, and I did. And I have like literally the most amazing visual timeline of my life because of that. And it's just like for my own personal thing. I don't share really anything that I take. But Otter is also now like another branch of kind of recording a timeline for me. So if I'm having a conversation with one of my kids, and sometimes like one of the very last conversations I recorded on Otter, no joke, was about race and discrimination. And they had all of these questions for me. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to record this. And it meant the world to me to record this conversation with an 8 and a 10-year-old on race and discrimination and their understanding of what they've experienced, what they're learning, their nuances, their questions, all of that stuff. Because for me, it was a really special moment to have such a dynamic conversation with them and teach them some very foundational pieces that they can take and implement right away. But I also have it recorded now.
You have
Like
something
that
to
is everything.
pass to them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like and I get to hear their minds and their, I can't say their little brains because I feel like they've got big brains and they're like constantly going. I get to listen back on that, and I do. And something I also do is that anytime I ask my dad a question about his like immigration story related things about when he lived in Iran and stories that I want to make sure that I have record of that I can share with my kids, like us Persians, we can talk, and my dad included, he can talk a lot and use a lot of words, and I love it. And it's also a great way to record that as well. So for me, it's down to like Zoom meetings, to conversations with my kids or my dad, trying to recall stories that I want to make sure I'm passing down. That for me, that implementation of AI, that tool is my ride or die.
Really dope. I'm really quickly highlight. It just triggered for me, right? How it affects people's lives when we just talk about benefits or how to engage. I think would be very subjective and different. So it was super cool. And there's an overlap in everything we sort of said and how we learned and where we found it. Interesting thing there is when you think about capturing those family moments, right? If you were to sit down and try to capture that conversation, you might be focused on writing it down, ensuring that you got key things. When you could just lean on an AI note taker, it makes it that much deeper because you get a personally engaged, committed mentally,
Yeah.
while restoring it for posterity is taken off of your load. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great
And
example.
to take it even further, I utilize Otter, as I said, my ride or die, um, whenever I'm talking to family in Iran, family that I'm not sure if, genuinely
Let's
speaking, I
go.
will I will ever get to meet because of the current insanity that is the government there. So the fact that I have actual record of it, like that for me is everything. And I get to be present with the conversation because Otter's capturing it. And
Yeah.
Love it.
you can't put a price on that, you know?
Yeah, and I think just for someone out there that's going, okay, well, why don't you just use voice notes like that? What makes it different? I think that the thing to note is it's the capturing of Otter capturing it, but it's the fact that there's also like an AI transcript that you could go back and be like, what did my dad say? Like, what's that thing he mentioned? What's that town he mentioned? And so that's what AI is at work. Is like the ability to actually like reference it and then index it and then actually utilize it. One of the things that, for you creatives out there that want to, like think about like content, like, and Parisa isn't writing scripts yet. I hope she does one day. But like even the ability to go, okay, now I have like, 3 hours or 30 hours of like conversations with my dad, turn that into, an episodic film, or turn that into a song, or turn that into a poem. Like that's what, for the purposes of this community and people that we talk to, that's where it gets really interesting for you out there. It's like, say you do use Otter to record all this stuff, like being able to turn that into a comic book, being able to turn that into a clothing line, that's where it gets really interesting, and what really excites me about the kind of the intersection of the creator economy and AI.
And I think you can on a creative level or an artistic expression, you can translate any of what's recorded into really preserving a legacy or preserving a generation that is being completely obliterated in certain circumstances. So it's you can do whatever you want with it. And for me, it's like just being able to preserve it and capture it is everything, because then I have plans to put it in a very different type of book. And I already have it formatted and everything. So like for me, the thoughts are already churning. It's already formatted and things like that. And
That's so cool.
And it's, for me, that's a very approachable way to experience AI, because I'm very mindful of how I'm experiencing things coming in, and how much I'm allowing myself to become dependent upon technology as a whole. Yeah. So,
Cool.
but to answer your question, Brian, how do I utilize Chat GPT? I do. I've realized it stunts my thought process until I have a clear topic, or a clear something that I'm really wanting to go deep into. I cannot use it for broader scope ideas or concepts. And I say that because I'm very metaphorically minded. It's the way I process information. The very logistical, analytical way that you utilize Chat GPT does not meet my metaphorical processing style really well. So I have to wait till I have something to break down further to utilize it, and to be able to really get into the flow of it and be able to appreciate it. So do I use it? Yes. It's very situational. The tool that I use, I think, the most outside of Otter, though, is oh gosh, what's it called? Opus. I'm looking at the tab right now because I have it open. Opus. It's it takes clips over long form videos, and it makes clips for you. Because I started just several months ago learning how to edit videos. I suck so bad.
I've seen something. No, I'm messing with you. I'm completely joking.
I have no knowledge. Right. So this tool does it for me, and I still am editing. I'm still selecting. I'm still tweaking a ton. But the fact that it just gets this big long thing into like a shorter thing, it's like a bite-sized thing, then I can tweak and make it into my own. Oh God, it's amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
I know you didn't know that I know.
I didn't know that you were going to put the word AI and amazing together.
Exactly.
I know. What happens when you ask me questions, Brian?
That's the hook of this. Tell you.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so this one is something that I've had conversations with many creatives, and they've had the same exact question in different words, but this is the overall question they're asking is, so for creatives that express their artistry outside of tech tools. So think of like a muralist, for example, okay, just
Yeah.
as something completely outside of it.
Yeah.
How can AI enhance the creative process or improve their overall creative experience? Now, that's going to be broad, but this is a legit question that so many people have come forward with. And this is what is also providing a lot of resistance for people to enter into utilizing tools as well. So if you're going to evangelize, this is the moment.
I'm gonna wait, but I'm bouncing because I'm
I
excited.
can see, I can see.
Yeah. Oh wow. Well, I'll start. And, usually Brian has more words than I do. Both of you guys actually have a lot of words.
I don't
Oh
know.
my
I don't know.
goodness.
You guys,
This is
you guys
gonna,
go
there's a
toe
whole
to
nother
toe.
conversation there, but you go.
But what comes up immediately is workflows, and everything has a workflow. Everything in the creative process. So if you're a muralist, it's the thinking of the everything from buying the paint or buying the actual brushes or whatever you use to thinking about the subject matter. Like what are you actually painting, or why are you painting it, or is there deeper meaning behind it? And I think for me, what has been resonant for how I use AI in my creative practice, which I guess right now is like DJing, it is in like the process of the workflow. So the workflow process of a DJ is preparing crates or understanding music or finding music. And so like there's definitely like a way in which I work in that I can I like this song. I want more songs like it. I think I'm seeing that best played out in places like Spotify, right? Where it uses AI to kind of get smarter about your listening habits. My favorite is probably Shazam. I think Lynette and I mentioned that in a couple of episodes ago, but I actually really love Shazam's algorithm and its use of AI. I think it does a great job of like helping me build better Brazilian crates. So if you like this song on SoundCloud, or if you like this kind of mix, you'll probably like these other mixes. So I think the way to look at AI and the creative process is probably the reassessment of your creative process. Like what did it take to prepare that canvas to paint that photo? What were the ways we used to use the canvas and the brush and the subject, and what are the ways in which technology can enhance that? And so it is a broad question because it could be anything. I think people get really stuck on just like asking it a question, like, hey, I use ChatGPT to ask a question. The thing about AI that really is important for people to know is it actually is the questions you ask, and hopefully it makes you a better question asker. Like I think for me, it's like I found like even in working in venture capital, when I decided to work in this space, it was the questions I wasn't asking that became really important. And so what I find AI helpful in is in the questions I'm not asking and to get smarter about those questions. And then the other thing is like I love that the way your brain works metaphorically. I think I have a deep appreciation for metaphorical and metaphors in general. Probably could do even more, but there's been oftentimes I'm like, okay, explain blockchain technology to me like a fifth grader, and it'll give you like, imagine if you were on the playground and this and that, right? And so I think as a part of the creative process, part of our process includes storytelling and breaking it down in a way that it can be palatable by lots of people. So if I was to be telling a story about something, I would be using AI to help me build a different narrative around trying to express myself around something. So there's a few ways that kind of work for me.
Okay, first of all, I gotta say, I am. There's a heat wave coming. Everybody knows, so I'll accept the shade, James. But your shade on the words. I'm also a little petty. So when we talk about AI, if you haven't checked, Otter gives the speaker percentage on every meeting.
Fact.
So
Oh, I like this one too.
Right?
I
So
do.
I've been using that to train myself to be concise. But since it's a day of challenges, brother, I'm working on getting Otter plugged into this stream. So we're gonna see. I love AI. But
Can I say one thing? In our conversation yesterday, I had to record it so I could have context to like
shit.
look at stuff. It actually counted James as 2 different speakers. That's also that this happens often. It gives James's 2 roles. There's 4 speakers in a conversation with the 3 of us. It always amazes me. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, I'm just saying, I'm not, I mean, like I said, I appreciate the shade. It's hot. I can be a little petty, so I'm gonna lean on the data. But no, I love everything all of us have, all of you guys have. Actually, I love what I have to say too. But no, I'm gonna say again, like we just talked about, and you hit it really well, Parisa. James hit it in much more detail. There is it is the but all the jokes aside, to be serious, it's hard to say for any individual creative. I think figuring out is really about just engaging with it, right? I'd first say it's not like you may not like water, you may not want to swim, but you don't actually control whether a tidal wave is going to come. And what happens if that tidal wave comes and you haven't at least, as a swimmer, and you haven't at least jumped in the water, you don't have to be Parisa, but you have to be able to stay afloat, or it's absolutely going to have a negative impact. It's going to wipe you away. So jump in the AI water in the way that you're comfortable, because the tidal wave is coming, right? And,
Did you read my post I put yesterday?
What? Oh, you did? No, I did not.
That's literally what I wrote about seeing the water and learning how to like respect the water, learning how to swim versus becoming constricted and panicking and being overwhelmed. Literally.
I think it's a perfect analogy. I think it's right. I didn't cheat, but I'm glad to know we're aligned. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Yeah,
because we talked about how there's a lot of fear. So I think first of all, you're a non-tech based creative, or really anybody, but on a non-tech based creative. First, understand that it's coming into your space, and so get in the water, and get in the water the way you see it's comfortable. I think getting over writer's block, right? And like your cognitive model is not this, Parisa, but literally just throw things at it. I got frustrated really early. I even pick on James, as I like to do, because he wrote this AI email, and it finished with, and I eagerly await to discuss this topic with you. And early on, when people started engaging, I'm like, this flowery language. But I brought it more into my communications, because even if it's not the final, it just gives me like, if I don't know how I'm going to approach this really sensitive email to my manager or an investor, let me run it through AI, and all of a sudden it starts to unlock things. So I think the same thing's for the creative. You also can throw it at image generators or music generators just to start to expand your boundary and start to think about the art of the possible, right? Like, hey, maybe there's something that's going to trigger my own unique creative model by seeing what AI gives. And then, also every art, every creative endeavor has a tactical and business, it has a tactical process to it. So figure out where to source the best materials, identify a new production process, right? Identify the social ill that's going on. The last thing I'll kind of hit on in this and start to pull out is I started to realize that for me, I was talking to my wife about this, Copilot and ChatGPT have become my new search engine, because it allows me more efficiently versus search, click link, read, interpret, map. It gets to do a really efficient data query, getting nerdy, and bring it back together. So writer's block, visualization, understanding the art of the possible, and practical non-sexy things like sourcing materials, production processes, etc. I try to say my words really fast.
You got to cut down that percentage. I know. I get it. I know. I got to just speak even slower. I'm already like a Very intentional word selector. So I
Mhm.
naturally don't speak as fast. There are times that I can speak really fast. It exists. But maybe I should have slowed down even more to up my percentage. I'm kidding. I'm not going to, because I already listen to myself on like 4 times the speed whenever I have to listen to stuff. So
That's funny.
it is what it
That's funny.
is. Gotta do what you gotta do to get through yourself, right?
Yeah, but just
Um,
voice dysmorphia. Yeah.
yeah. So okay. This is something that we touched a bit on yesterday. And but I want to like really, really pinpoint it today. And so the question is overall like how is a creator's authenticity impacted by AI? And the way this came forward yesterday was when I said when we were chatting about today's stream, and I was like, you guys were suggesting that I use Chat GPT, and I was like, nope, I'm not gonna do it. It blocks my thought process. You know, that part. Um, and so yes, things were generated after that, right? Not by me. Putting that out there, not by me, because I got to stick with what I know what works for my brain. But I was asking, like, okay, if you have these things generated, then like, why do you need a person then? And like, does it impact the authenticity of the conversation or the dialogue or the creative process?
Yeah, I think Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn, um, uh, he did a thing where he had his digital twin, right? A generated representation of himself, interview himself. You start to get the idea if you go find that and watch that, right? AI is not there yet. I'm not going to say that it won't likely be there very soon, but in terms of can it ask somebody questions, nuance in time, interpret the answers, figure out what threads to pick and pull, and almost as I often quote, as you said a couple of streams ago, it's not about what you say; it's about how you say it and AI is not there yet. So you think about at the end of the day, the questions that AI can generate for an interview and in what, in my belief, in what is a good discussion, the questions have very little to do with it. They're prompts that create a space for two humans to interact, right? And AI is not going to be able to do that, and AI is not going to be able to it's not going to be able to evoke, I think, a true, authentic truth out of me if I was being interviewed by a chatbot. So in that one example, that's where I sort of think it's very clear that it can't replace a human in a meaningful way anytime soon.
Okay, that reminded me of a follow-up question I have. Go for it, James.
My favorite quote is for those who are kind of, fearing AI is you won't be replaced by AI. You'll be replaced by someone who understands how to use AI. And so that has really pushed me into thinking about how I actually use, like, what's the actual practice of using AI. And so I spent a few months, and I think, well, I'll spend the rest of my life really around this area. And it's interesting because, in being deeply inspired by Parisa, there's this kind of phrase that she likes to use, which is words matter. And in the AI space, actually words do matter, and being descriptive and illustrative can provide really beautiful returns because the computer at least has a lot of data to work from. So the best way that I'm now utilizing it is actually using voice. So it's actually not typing. So it's actually using ChatGPT 4 at a more advanced level, meaning buying the package. You can just talk to your phone, and your phone captures the data. And I find that to be a better way to really develop a new process. So for me as a creative, um, it's not replacing anything. It's adding another use of my brain, I would say, in that I get to actually take a part of my process that I'd either outsource to a human or I would like probably skip over in my process. It allows me to go super deep into even that part of the process. And so I think the output of that is better art, better products, if you would, because I've actually taken the time to like unpack like the middle layer of the creative process. So if I'm going to write a blog post, like normally I would just be like, oh, I'm going to write a blog post about this subject and I'm going to start writing, maybe do a little research. But like I can further dive into the blog post because I've decided to take this one paragraph or this one chunk and go deeper into it. So there was the net result is, again, I couldn't outsource that. Like I could outsource that, I guess. Like, hey, assistant or intern, look at this blog post and go deeper. That's what an editor would be. But like I want to be the one going back and forth with and tussling and going, oh, that sucks and that's good, or I like that, or that spawned another thought. I like the going back and forth around the text or even the music. Let's talk about music. So I'm making AI music these days, and like it's like I've reinterpreted songs that and could I have someone else write the music? Yeah, but I'm really enjoying like the word and what it sounds like and what it sounds like over jazz versus this kind of music versus this kind of music. I think that ability to hear a reference singer. Now, yes, that is replacing me going to the studio and hiring a studio singer. Well, here's the reality, guys. Like, I'm not on the creative side as a creative. I mean, I'm a creative in the music business, but I'm not that kind of creative, right? A Jazzy Jeff, a James Poyser, kind of creative. So I don't have studio equipment. And so for me to be able to like produce a song or hear what my lyrics sound like on top of a jazz track or on a piano track or whatever, like that has value for me. And it allows me to focus on other parts of my creativity while I know other parts are being nurtured. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the replacement of things. I think the way to look at it is not like what it's replacing, but what is it adding? What is it creating? And what are the new art forms that come off of this art form? Something we've seen over society and technology and the place in which technology and art have always collided. It's always resulted in new art forms and new mediums. And I would look at this as a different kind of acrylic or a different kind of paint that you're using to tell your story.
Love it. Awesome. Okay. I don't have anything to add to that.
Hopefully you're going to hold us accountable, because right now it sounds like all sunshines and roses. Hopefully we're going to get to the other side, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. That was part of the question, but James went a different direction with it, and it's all good because it was relevant. So like it's fine. And it's still painting AI as like, as you said, what, rainbows and roses, or what are
sunshine and roses. Everything I said was sunshine and roses.
Right? There you go. I wish I were better.
Unicorns and ponies. Sorry, go ahead.
Gosh, no, because that's definitely a hot button. God, I was born in the U.S. and I don't sound like I have issues. I need to learn these phrases better. But yeah, it's definitely a hot button that is. I mean, it's talked about a lot about replacement and what that actually means, what that actually looks like, and really expanding the conversation, expanding it to be a conversation versus limiting it to a statement, which I feel like that's a lot of the time what it becomes. And what it is people will say the statement like, oh, it's going to take away jobs. Well, that's a statement. Even if that statement is true, well, it can be expanded into a conversation. And that's what I feel like, James, you brought forward, which is definitely, excuse me, very helpful and relevant. And the conversation is going to look different for each person, but to offer a part or one perspective of a conversation of it, I think is helpful for people to start really allowing that to start generating in their minds. So
yeah, I just want to add one thing that when even the pure notion of it's going to take away jobs is not a fact. So it's like it's also like it's important for those of us that have seen cycles of technology to like go beyond the fear mongering. And the problem is that, you know, I came out of the digital divide, right? Like I came out of this moment where we actually like made technology feel inaccessible. And so I know the dangers of inaccessibility of technology conversation and what that leads to. And when I speak from this standpoint, it's because I don't want people to get left behind. And if you fall into this thing of like, oh my God, it's gonna take away jobs,
it's a lot.
right?
Yeah.
And if you respect the fact that like I'm telling you from a very privileged position, and that I spent my last week in Silicon Valley with the people who are funding and hiring and are thinking about job titles that don't exist, because that's the work I do by day, then I'm telling you from a position of like, I promise you, it's not taking away jobs. If you change the jiu-jitsu move a little bit, you'll see that it's actually opening up jobs. But we often let the narrative and the political narrative and the media narrative, which is what is sort of in that take away jobs conversation. We're leading into an election year. There's a lot that's going to be used around this moment of AI. AI is a hot button topic politically.
Yeah.
When you start to like recognize the politics in messaging like that, you begin to realize that like, yeah, like I probably should get out there and like do my own discovery and research, because it just taking away jobs feels like it's being said too much. And I promise you, it's sent to you to distract you and to not allow you to feel like you have accessibility to something that for this next generation will be the industrial revolution that's available to us all. And there will be so many ways that we feed our families, protect the sick, feed the poor, do all the things. But most people are guarded from that kind of information, and or they're led to believe either by their family, their community, or their school that's the dominating narrative. I also come from the perspective of like a global perspective. So as Americans, we are fed a certain narrative, but in other parts of the world, this conversation about AI and blah, 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 it sounds very different in other parts of the world. I could say the same thing about Web3, blockchain, something that I experienced that here we're in this like weird moment with Web3 and blockchain. And meanwhile, if you're not paying attention to what's happening with Bitcoin and what happened recently, creatives, you will miss the greatest opportunity for you to feed your family and build your empire.
Well, if that's not fear mongering, I don't know what is. That last statement you made, I'm like, come on, you were doing so good. And I'm like, shit, I need to go dive into stuff now because I'm going to miss this now. Yeah, I think it was a great elaboration on what I just said, James. Like, it's exactly like, don't let it stop as the statement or the narrative that you've been told or that is being fed or that's being pushed. And I mean, we're easier to control when we're scared. So
bingo. I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, that's the
before
point.
the stream gets taken down because I said that.
That's
yeah. Well, we've seen obviously. I mean, not to get even more political, we saw with what's happening in Congress right now, and having Fauci basically tell you that he lied to you, right? So like if you take that same ability, that's also happening in the tech conversation right now, in the finance conversation around Bitcoin. It's so yes, I want to focus on AI because I know it's a subject matter, but I could not sort of bring in that when we're hearing conversations about AI, it's up to you to negotiate and navigate and research whether this is political mantra to fear and put fear in my life, or is there really something to fear? And I would hope that you appreciate and respect the fact that we're coming to you from a perspective of having a lot of years in the business and currently sitting in a very privileged position in understanding technology.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have that respect for the both of you as you share things with me. And I push back a lot because I have that knowing that you guys have that knowledge base, and knowing that I'm not a sheep and I'm just going to follow someone just for the sake of following.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I think like any other technology situation that has significant impact to society, which this does, it's always yin and yang. Look, we could get really spiritual. Life is yin and yang. We keep balance, as we like to argue, right? So it is important that there's questioning, and there's pushing and pulling, and there's authentic exuberance that balances that. Right?
Was that a chat GPT phrase? As you said, you
No.
eagerly await.
No. Remember, you got when I talk about Florida, that is eagerly await, authentic exuberance. Remember, I freestyled since I was 13 years old. So yeah, maybe alliterations. But yeah.
Yeah, I think
you hit the softball. I had to hit it right there.
I know it was a good call. That was sharp. Well done.
It's important to balance being overly techno optimist and this sort of, oh my God, the sky is falling, my world is over, pessimist, and like it's somewhere in the middle, because I believe like full tech optimism is also not like, and there are people that are like that in my world, where they're like, oh my God, it's gonna do everything, it's gonna do all these things. I'm like, yeah, and at what cost? Yeah, and what are we actually doing about those that are shut out? Great, it's going to create all these jobs. That even the mere notion that I said it's going to create more jobs is privilege in and of itself, right? So like it is important to know that what I'm saying, like it's going to create more jobs. Even having access to that information that I know it's going to create more jobs already puts me in a privileged position. The question is, what do you actually do with that information and that privilege, and how do we make sure more people have access, which has always been at the root of what I'm trying to do.
So the interesting, this is a whole nother show, so I'm really going to constrain it. In a lot of ways, AI is going to be one of the best in it, and it's not simple, but it does provide an opportunity for people that haven't been able to get into the digital careers, that have been still stuck on a certain age of the digital divide, to level up and get in.
Absolutely. It's the biggest issue why I have problems, and I will say it publicly, with Tyler Perry's position on Atlanta and his film studio. For those that do not know, Tyler Perry got to witness OpenAI's Sora, which is text to video, and he made a claim that he was no longer going to finish the $800 million build out of Tyler Perry Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. My biggest complaint with that was not that the man decided to pull his money. He is entitled to do that as an American in this country. Absolutely. My challenge is the expectation, or, which is not a good word to use, but the level of responsibility that I believe we have to not continue the narrative of doomsday. And especially for a man of color, an African-American at that, living in a city that has so much talent. I love Atlanta, Georgia. I do. It's got education, it's got corporation, and it has a school district that needs help, right? And a man with that kind of power, I felt he did not use it to his ability by making a claim that, oh no, we must be fearful of AI. Now, I give the man grace. That was probably 3 months ago, 4 months ago. He has had time to take that to the altar, pray on that. And I love what grace gives you, because I have grace for Tyler, and I hope he hears this. What I think is necessary, though, is that we build infrastructure at the school level, at the family level, and we make sure that we're not just running away from something that's this powerful and this transformative.
Without being in Tyler Perry's position, obviously, and without being in the nitty-gritty of his business and that specific like circumstance, and with hearing what you were just sharing about having the privilege of this information, this knowledge, and this understanding to the extent right now. Mm-hmm. And sorry, I'm connecting a lot of dots here. And with this passion you have for being this evangelist, I see it as, and with you wanting to be able to really help leverage the information you have, the privileged information you have, to expand.
I like how you said evangelist. I look back at these keyboards and it feels like I'm in the pews of a Baptist church.
Well,
keep going.
Well, that is where here's the thing. Here's the thing. Cool. I'm speaking from this this context of, as you're sharing this gripe about his positioning, which he's entitled, you're entitled, right? And as I literally put on like my counseling hat for the moment, just to like hear it through that lens. And I heard it through the lens of like, oh, okay, here's a problem. And you actually have the desire for this thing. And this thing that you have a desire for is actually the solution. You can help bridge the gap of information and of knowledge and understanding. And maybe you not maybe in particular going one-on-one with him, because also that's also still very like insular and lacking reach. But like, what if it was through other means of sharing the information, helping people understand it, implement it, integrate it, that it also would reach the Tyler Perrys?
You know, it's like people say that like if something's not there, just fix it and just do it on your own. So I actually am working on something right now. I'm not waiting for Tyler Perry. I don't need that man. So I'm a grown ass man.
Ain't even about Tyler Perry.
I'm just saying.
You could use Medea, though. But anyway, go ahead.
But no, but I think you put the guy on your wall that becomes that moment, right? And for me, it was that moment where he had, I believe, had an opportunity to step in a different way and didn't. That will lead me to the creation of something that I do believe fills the gap. So no, I don't have any issues with Tyler Perry. God bless him. I think he's done great, incredible, proud of him. It was that moment of frustration that will lead to a new business idea that I'm already baking, I'm already creating right now. And it was, you look back on your life and it's like, hey, you can either sit around and bitch about it or moan about it or do it on your own. I did that at TED. I was like bitching and moaning about like these fancy parties and they were crusty and dusty and the music was corny and whack. And I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna create a party. Here's $1,000. Give me your bar. And I now throw the best party at TED because like I personally didn't like the music that was being played. So it's the same thing with this. Like I could sit here and talk about Tyler Perry all day long, but that's really not going to put any effort into it. I know Atlanta, Georgia. I know brands. I know what I need to do. And so there is some things I'm baking. Speaking of Atlanta, speaking of TED. And so, yeah, there's in that hero's journey, I get to point to Tyler Perry in that moment and go, thanks, Tyler, because what you're not going to do, I'm going to do.
Please don't use the word crusty. It's so gross.
Like, it's meant to evoke.
You need words to grab you sometimes. I'm crispy. Is that better? No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Crunchy.
I'm just messing with you now. In a sense, you're like the sister I like to put frogs on. So love you though.
Okay. Well, I do believe we need to wrap here in a minute. And as we wrap, I'd like to cover one last thing. And as we're experiencing each other on a screen right now, that's stating the obvious. Is there a way? Are there ways? Does it exist to utilize or to experience any of these AI tools as of now without needing to be on a screen? That's what I want to know, because I would love, what's that? I want to know how I can utilize anything that's like moving forward, that's emerging, but not on a dang screen, because my brain needs a break. All of our brains need a break.
I was so getting ready to ask you why. Well, I still want to ask you before I answer. I know we're marching towards the end. Last question. Even though in explaining your week, you sort of answered it, and maybe that is. Why is that a requirement for you, or is it a requirement for you to kind of get your full engagement with AI? Just making it personal for a sec before we go back to.
Okay, two things or three things. One is what I mentioned already, being very mindful of how much I'm allowing myself to truly be interacting with any screen, looking at a screen, blue light in general. That's one. Two is this is something I'm diving into a lot more in terms of my own research. And this is something that's going to continue to be evolving as a whole, but it's the cognitive process and utilization of AI. Does it ultimately, does it impact our ability as humans on the critical thinking front? That to me is everything on the planet, because if it impacts our ability to critically think, because we've been trained to not really critically think. We've been trained to follow and repeat and regurgitate and just become puppets. That for me is the most, like, if you want to place fear on anyone, like that is what I live with and I'm convicted by, to make sure that I live a life that I'm not just eliminating and diminishing the things that help sharpen my cognitive function and my critical thinking. And third is because I've got kids, and exposing them to tech, I was very intentional about it. We did not have screens on, and they did not have tech exposed to them till they were 5 years old, each of them. I was very intentional, and for the actual brain development. And my son just turned 11. He did get an Oculus for his birthday. So it's not like he doesn't understand these things. He's not plugged in. He's the one that requested it. And he understands, like, they understand things so much faster than I do. He's going to have to teach me how to use this dang thing. But the thing is that, like, it's because it impacts me on an everyday basis. And I say me as in, I know a lot of moms that also have the same thoughts, the same curiosities, the same wonders. And to make sure we're not just like turning our kids into these zombies with all of this emerging technology, these tools, all this integration, like, it's awesome, great, yay. But can they understand how to relate themselves to life? Can they adapt well? Because they've been so connected to something that's not a human, things like that. That's why it's important. So Brian, show me your gadget, please.
Love it. I'll show the gadget. Well, I'll say just very tactically. Right now, there's kind of 3 top devices that allow you to interact with AI kind of without a screen, right? And they're debatable. They're trying to find their space. There's this one. This is this new Rabbit, kind of a toy. People will argue that you can do the same thing with your phone. So one will be the Rabbit. The other thing is now with your phone, with what Apple's doing, but with Chat GPT for Omni, you don't have to, you can press a button on your AirPods and you can talk to AI without ever opening your screen. There's another one called Humane, and then Meta and Ray-Ban came together and put together glasses. Right. But so the answer of the tactically, is there a what? Yes, there is a what. I'm sorry, James, were you were jumping in? No. There is a what, but I think what you just said actually was really important. I'm first going to say we've talked about ethics. I think there'll probably be another show. We've witnessed how the internet benefits and impacts society. We've witnessed and are actively debating how social media benefits and impacts society. I think we're going to move. There's going to be good and bad of every advancement we make. I think one of the things we're learning that's important in what you call out with screen time and raising kids is that we don't get fearful and stop it, but we understand the responsibility and we make sure that as it's moving forward, we are also considering how to handle modeling what the impact to society is and considering how to handle it. Right. So I think what you said is really, really important. They're there. There will be more. And until you said that, I wouldn't have thought about how important they are. You triggered a phrase for me, and that's we want technologies to enhance our experience, our connection with the world, not sever our connection with the world. Right.
I have a thought around that too. I want to make sure I don't lose it because
jump in.
My cognitive.
Yeah. You are a little older than me, so
a little older, exactly. I do buy. Shout out to the folks here at On It. You know what I mean? One of our favorite brands. I have the you can't see it. I have
it's down. There you go. Alpha Brain.
Alpha Brain. Okay, that's memory and focus. Thank you. Okay.
He's like, before I lose this thought, hold on, here's my supplement that I'm gonna put.
Exactly. So one of the things that's kind of interesting is I really love what Priest had to say about making sure that these tools don't limit how we use parts of our brain, functions of our brain. And, I was reminded about the power of like crossword puzzles and like things that are like using your hands. Remember my kids started off going to a Montessori school, and I was like, why are they just like scooping up some things like what? And I really began to appreciate the motor skills and the relationship between motor skills. And it's interesting that you say this, because I've been, practicing martial arts and trying to really be meditative about that. I've recently been thinking about Tai Chi and Qigong and breath work. And I think a lot about like how important it will become to make sure that, there's less screens and more like games. Like think of the games we grew up playing that really you had to tap into, like, especially when your parents gave you games that were about learning, right? And like pushing your learning. But like there were certain games or certain things, even like crossword puzzles or like Mad Libs or like things like that were really like resonant in helping us shape our minds. And even as we thought about our kids just getting out in the outdoors. One of the things I learned in my time with Denver, they were like, the great thing about being in the outdoors is you actually have to use risk and push yourself and like use parts of your brain that you're not going to get from just sitting in front of a computer and like challenging yourself and what that does to your brain. So yeah, I really love that reflection. I know that's what your work is about, Parisa. And so I really appreciate you bringing that forward. And I want to work on that. Like I want to be involved in that kind of work. The second thing I just want to add is to the spatial computing. First of all, this dude, Brian, has bought all the little latest gadgets and stuff. He bust out the, first
He's like,
of its
kind. I have one for that.
Exactly. Shout out to the folks that you bought that from on Kickstarter, that's probably when you bought it. But the reality is, I love that about you, by the way. Is that what Brian is saying is the most important thing I am focusing on these days, which is spatial computing and the relationship between products and AI. So we spent a lot of time, especially on this 101 level, talking about like, ChatGPT and like, kind of the AI as we know it. Where I think AI gets really interesting is when it goes into spatial computing and Internet of Things, where this bottle is connected to the internet, which is connected to AI, right? So it knows like what your blood type is, and it knows how much water you need to drink today because you've given it permission to actually track your water usage in the course of a day. Where your goggles actually have data coming from the city of Pasadena, which tells you, today you might want to go this way to get to Los Angeles versus going through Pasadena and using the 234. And that data comes from historical data, or like that's basically what Waze is. Waze is kind of that right now, where it's using an algorithm and using AI to tell you, hey, go this way. And then James, as Parisa will tell you, usually it takes like 30 different ways to get to one thing.
That's what happens when you're native, Angelina.
That's right.
You learn.
And so you learn, right? You learn the streets, and then sometimes you get aided by something that says, you know what, like, yeah, you've been going this way for 5 years to get from LA to Pasadena. Well, you know what? Here's a way that just opened up, and over the last 30 days, it's proven to be faster for 1 million riders that are trying to make their way from LA to Pasadena. And so we're going to start to see the internet and AI designed in our dashboards in our cars. We're already seeing that. That's basically what you're driving when you're driving a Tesla. You're driving a computer with wheels that uses AI. So AI is already here, and the AI meets the Internet of Things, meets physical goods. What I'm actually looking forward to is our gestures, where it's like, this means this, where you're not typing anything, you're just gesturing, because we're going to start to use haptics and body and gesturing different. There's the way, for instance, the way we watch sports. All of those things are producing data points that the NBA and the NFL are actually tracking for athletes. And the way you're going to watch the game is going to be based on what you know about the player's data. That's all coming through a bunch of different points, including the helmet. That data is being collected right now.
We're at like 501 right now. I need you to like pause like a little bit, please.
I'm obsessed with like when you say how AI is going to be used. I felt it was important to like kind of catch everybody up to what's
No,
happening?
but we were on the other question though, the non-screen tools bit. That's
But
like,
yeah, and it's good. And I actually think that's like where the conversation has to be had. But when we think techno optimist or technologist, where we have to be careful, because that pervasiveness of the AI that was just discussed, for some of us, it's like, dang, this is going to be exciting. If you're already pulling away from it, you're like, wait, the NFL is going to read my body position as I'm watching the game, right? But I do think it is really important when we just go out of, I want to call out two things that I think will help us transition. One is when we talk the narrow case of how we'll interact with AI, I'm thinking about what's prevalent right now. Generative AI, chat-based generative AI with long language models. Reality, as James called out, it is already everywhere. I do think you called out this big gap that's really interesting. I'm sure somebody's tackling it, but I don't see it. And that's tactile AI for education, learning, and younger folks, right? Which I think, James, you kind of sketched out. Parisa, you just kind of sketched out. But what you really did call out, especially if something like that comes to fruition, a bit of it is already living with our kids that are gaming, that are engaging with online interactive media. And it's going to be, AI will accelerate on multiple fronts the need for data ownership, because there's movements by Tim Berners-Lee. I always forget, I think it's Solid, the name of his company he founded, that is about, you know how Amazon has your address, all your accounts, Google has all of your search information. Well, the idea is that we actually, our data lives on blockchain or lives in pods. And every time someone wants to access it, or decentralized identity is another term, we could say, okay, you can have my name, email address. You can hold it for X amount of time, or you can only get it when you query it, but you can't store it. Now, AI becoming pervasive in our lives, it's really important that we start to look at that. And that is the convergence. And I know I'm geeking out a bit here, of Web3 and AI, because we need to be able to use the transparency of blockchain to allow us to own our data. Because when I start conversating, using it for psychotherapy, sharing my deepest thoughts, letting it engage with my child as they grow, that's not the same thing as my embarrassing browser history. Right. That is right. That is right. So we're giving another level of access. And I'd like us to have a conversation about that, right? We need to think more thoughtfully about how we move forward and protect it.
Yeah, I would love to have that conversation offline first, because that specifically, that's something that, I keep myself safe on the internets because I don't talk about these things on the internet. So I'm going to not talk about it yet. But I definitely would
talk about it here. So when you're ready, I do want to make sure that we know, and you guys, listeners, know, we will not be afraid to talk about anything. Honestly, if we have to move this thing off of any channel, we stream on every single channel. So like we will have the real conversation about data ownership and the real deal, as we always have been. And that conversation it's not even like it has to happen like ahora, like now, for creators, especially who are coming up against a strike, who are coming up against a lot of stuff happening in the world. Like we need to have that conversation like next week, because, and I hate to just sound like the urgent uncle or dad, but like the reality is, well, the reality is this year is an important year for voters who, for folks who can change policy locally, can change policy on a federal level. You know, this is probably for that conversation that you're talking about right now. The reason there's a sense of urgency is because we're in the year of 2024, and there's going to be policies and things that happen at many levels that affect the way that you actually can do the things you do. And this is not Jetsons. We're not talking about 2040. We're talking about this year's election will include things that will affect your life, your data, the way you move around in this country. And that conversation is never too early for us. So we're going to have it here, and I'm not afraid to have it.
Well, I'm going to be cautious about what I share, at least. And I'm saying because I've literally I've been able to get to a place of health, of autonomy within my life because I've kept things very segregated and not in a centralized location and things like that. Being very vague because I need to be until I learn, until I have better language around how to say it, a little more eloquent. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I know things are going a certain way, and yeah, definitely want to talk to you guys about this offline, and then I'm down to bring it online, mindfully.
Well, guilt by association, sis. We're already here, so you're hooked up with these Oakland Raider fans. Ooh,
Niners.
You're a Niner fan?
I got a tear. I grew up on both, but that's another conversation as we get ready to grow out.
Guess what team she likes?
Ah, there we go. All right, great minds.
So this is like she's really anti you. You just like you.
Hold on.
Oh, man.
Oh no, I don't. Oh my God, I knew she was gonna say it. Oh my God. All right. Hey,
you know what though? No,
that's
real
a perfect
talk.
segue to wrap. Hold on.
That's
I'm gonna take
my
control
son,
of the
Brian.
show. Thanks,
Brian, I
everybody.
named my kid. I named my kid Dallas. Like that.
Oh God, I see it now. I see it.
But do you see
Okay.
Look at the
I lived in
crown.
Dallas.
Look at the crown that backs this logo and this entire branding. Who ran the branding for Creator Mode Studios and literally maps the colorways to Cowboys so that subliminally she could convert you into being a Cowboys fan? If that's not subliminal advertising, I don't know.
Right, talking about the ethics of AI, and she's got her information while she is programming us.
Color psychology matters, and you know what? The blue.
Right, but
and
I guess you'd say you're doing it for the greater. You're manipulating us for the greater good of being Dallas fans.
It is America's team. Yes, it's time we have some unity. No more division.
Okay,
all levels.
I gotta go now.
This is great, awesome. This is a great show. Appreciate you guys. We're out.
Likewise. Bye bye.